Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We are back. We're back. It's been a little while since we made a video together, and tonight we were just talking, and we want to make a video about fulfilling marriages and just how marriage is actually so fulfilling when it's Christ-centered, and how do we live how do we have a fulfilling marriage with our spouse? Because so many people are lost in their marriage, and a lot of people these days aren't even getting married, which is crazy because they think that it's pointless. They're living with the person that they have children with, but they don't see a point in getting married. So we want to talk about that type of stuff today. So we hope it helps you guys out, and we always encourage you to hit the subscribe button because we really want to hone in on the topic of marriage. I think that God is, as there's so many things on our hearts, the number one thing that we want to do is help people in marriage because it's so powerful, and that's why the enemy comes against family and marriage so hard. And when there's not a strong husband and wife, and a husband who knows his role and a wife who knows hers, the whole family unit falls apart. So that's our intro. That's what we're going to talk about today.
So I guess we're kind of freestyling right now because we didn't prepare in that way.
We always do
that we usually have. We kind of are just freestyling this, but
I feel like
what would you say to those that say that marriage is a piece of paper?
That's how we're starting?
Yeah, we're starting it like that. We're going all in.
Okay.
I've heard so many people say that at work and like at my work, at different jobs that I've had people say, well, why get married? It just means that you're going to have to file jointly with everything, and you're going to have to share this and share that. It's so selfish.
Yes.
Well, you go ahead. Sorry, I kind of asked you.
No, you're good. So what I would say to marriage being a piece of paper is I don't think that, there's a lot of things, but I don't think that those people's priorities are straight. I think that they look at it as something that's binding rather than something that's freeing. And, I can speak, on behalf of our marriage, and it goes so much further than just being a piece of paper. That's, legally in the earth what brings us together. But our covenant before God and man, it's kind of like it seals that, and it really shows. I kind of think of it like how we describe baptism, like getting baptized in water. Like it's an outward expression of your inward transformation with Christ. So a marriage and the actual marriage contract and all of that, and the legal binding of that is publicly declaring your love and your commitment to someone. And a lot of times at a wedding, when those things have been signed and, there's actually been a charge to the congregation, to the congregants, to the people who are witnessing, those vows and everything, that they would actually keep those, the married couple accountable. They'd hold them accountable. And the Bible says, let no man put asunder what God's brought together. Let no man divide what God's brought together. Even speaking in terms of marriage. So I think that it's a responsibility and accountability thing. I think people are too afraid to make that commitment, and they use that as an excuse.
Wow.
So that's what I would say for that.
That's really good. You go ahead and ask me a question.
Okay, so we're talking about fulfilling marriage, and I think that this is so important because so many people, they don't know why they're married, or there's even people who are married and they're like, we love each other and we know we're the right person for each other and we just fit so well, but there's like this ingredient missing. There's something missing. We don't feel fulfilled just being together. We don't feel fulfilled just us. It feels like we're missing something, right? And so I think that being fulfilled in our marriage is so important. So my question to you would be, it's kind of two-part. It's how can we be fulfilled in our roles as a husband and wife, and how can we overall be fulfilled in our marriage together?
So the first one is, there's scriptures to back up the role of a wife and the role of a husband, and they're equally needed. But to have fulfillment in that unit is to understand that the both of you are now one, but at the same time, you also have separate roles as a wife versus as a husband. Yeah. The husband is the head of the household, and God, Jesus, is the head of the man, and then the husband is the head of the wife. And so we sometimes we miss this certain part in this kind of biblical flow.
Structure.
Yeah, the structure,
The
that
order.
the flow of God, of the husband and of the wife. Sometimes we miss out on that middle part, and where that man becomes a man, and where that man becomes a loving husband, because it also says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means a sacrificial love that's unconditional, and a woman isn't going to submit to a man that doesn't have, she can't. I don't even believe that a woman is capable of fully submitting herself, mind, will, emotions, her soul, herself, to him all the way, unless he's loving her the way that she needs to be loved.
Unless she is in an unhealthy way. Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot when it comes to like marriage. I've seen a lot of people talk about how women need to be submissive, and I see the frustration of these women that have been hurt by men, and they're not getting any closure on that. They're not getting any apology. Like, I can understand the bitterness that lies inside of those types of women, but at the same time, we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to hear what some of them are saying. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not talking about extremist or feminist or anything like that. I'm talking about just women in general. Like, we've shut them down to the point where we've told them submit and be quiet, but we don't tell them their role. Their role, they have a role too that's just as powerful, and that is to not only care for and love her husband. And the Bible talks about loving your husband, being an example to your children by loving your husband, and loving your husband well in front of your children. So it's not just a command of the man to love his wife as Christ loves the church, but for the woman to love her husband. And how does that look? It looks different for a woman to love a man than it does for a man to love a woman. The man is a protector, the man is the provider, the woman is the one that is a nurturer. So there's two different roles, and they both balance each other out in such a beautiful way, and it's kind of like a synergy. And the second part to that question that you asked, I would say, how do you be fulfilled in a marriage, is the number one thing I would say is really just, when you first get married, you need to be in prayer about what God's calling the two of you to do. It's not even just when you first get married, but before you even get married. Pray to the Lord about, what is this relationship going to look like to bring you glory? What is this relationship going to look like to bring about the kingdom in the earth? And not listening to other outside influences, because I've noticed a lot, especially with young couples, is it's so easy to get outside influences telling you what to do.
Especially at the beginning.
Especially at the beginning of your marriage. It's like a complete, like, it's like one of the things that Mark Discroll has said, which is an amazing man of God that speaks a lot about marriage and talks about the hard things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But what he has said is, after the marriage comes the war. So what does that mean? Like, the enemy doesn't fight something that's not valuable to him, that he's not afraid of, or that isn't going to bring damage to his kingdom. He sees that and he tries to stop it right away. So
yeah, those are really good answers. So I think that what we're really saying here is living being fulfilled in your role as a husband and your role as a wife, and being fulfilled in your marriage. All it really goes back to is God's order, like the scriptures that we see, like she brought up, like loving your wife as Christ loves the church and gave himself for her, or wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. These scriptures that we talk about, leave and cleave, and all of those things, they give us an order, and they answer every question that we could ever need. Every question that I could ever have about how do I be a better husband, God can answer through his word. And obviously same for my wife. When she's struggling with something as a wife, going to God and asking him, he will always show us through his word the structure and the order that we need. So I think that so many of the marriages out there that are feeling unfulfilled, because we've felt this way time and time and time again as well, because we've struggled even with, like Clarissa was talking about, with outside influences and those things drawing a wedge in between us, or drawing competition between us, instead of allowing us to complement each other.
Yeah, we've heard so much about women submitting, but we haven't heard enough about leave and cleave. So that's a lot of the number one thing that you need to do first is leave and cleave.
Yeah.
And
so
everything else will flow from that.
yes. So like where the Bible says,
For this cause shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and the two should become one flesh.
yes. So shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. So much of the fulfillment in your marriage starts right there at step number 1, recognizing that things have changed when now that I'm married. And so I'm leaving my father and mother, I'm cleaving to my wife. We're becoming one flesh. We make decisions together. Yes. I like how Mark Driscoll says it, because he said, and a lot of people give him flack for this, and a lot of people majorly disagree.
Yeah.
But he says, when you get married, you're not joining her family and she's not joining your family. The two of you are starting a new family. And I think that that's so good, because we, in our society and in our, these spheres of families that we have,
there's enmeshment.
And we've seen it the same way for so long, where people aren't breaking out of the mold and creating their own thing. They're all just jumping into their own dysfunction together. And so much of the unfulfillment in marriages is just being completely out of order, because we don't understand. We're not going to the Word and seeing how, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and wow, after I implemented that, there's so much more peace in our marriage, And
especially us, we want to sit down with our children when we have them and tell them that. We want to be able to have that conversation before they even get married.
That's so good.
Hey, when you become married, it's different than becoming an adult from an adolescent. It's different than the stage of an infant to a toddler to an adolescent to an adult.
Completely.
It's completely different than that. You relate to your family in a completely different... All of your relationships you relate to in a different way because you're married. You don't just answer to yourself anymore. You have a person that you're with, and your decisions affect that person.
Yep.
So you have to talk to them. It's like you make decisions as one. You make decisions with your partner now.
Yeah.
And those decisions are made between you and your spouse, not between you, your spouse, and your mom, or you, your spouse, and your dad, or you, your spouse, and your sister, or brother, or cousin, or whatever it is, your friend.
And I think that kind of brings up the thought to me that so much of the unfulfillment that we have felt in marriage in this day is almost like these false expectations where we expect marriage to be a certain way, and now that we're living in it and it's not that way, we feel unfulfilled in it. And what I mean by this is like for instance, what she brought up with marriage is just a piece of paper. Going back to that, so many people feel unfulfilled because they expect marriage to be this hunky-dory, unicorns and rainbows type of lifestyle that doesn't require any deeper level of commitment, when as husbands and as wives, we're called to be our most selfless self. We're called to love each other, and we're called to love each other unconditionally.
And you mature from the time that you first say I do. It's not like you just say I do and then everything is just so perfect afterwards.
I think most people have no idea what they are even saying when they say I do. I really don't. I think that
I would hope they do.
Well, I think that we have an idea, but till we actually have to step into our marriage and step into the home together and work things out and deal with arguments, or
and
who's
pray
going to do the
together
dishes tonight,
and say I apologize and say
you take responsibility.
Forgive me. Yeah,
Yes.
It's not just because you can't go into it. You have to go from a low place, and like he said, being selfless and putting that person first.
Yeah.
And that's not easy for people to do, especially if you're not mature. Like the Bible even says, marriage is not for...
To sum it up, it basically says if you're not mature enough for marriage, then don't do it. But if you are, then go ahead for it. So we want to share this video with you guys today because maybe you're someone that's watching, maybe you're a married couple that's watching, or you're soon to be married or whatever, and you're feeling unfulfilled or you have questions. Our greatest piece of advice for this video is your fulfillment in your marriage will only come when you step into your godly role as a husband and a wife, and when you center your entire marriage, because the Bible says, it literally says that marriage, union between a man and a wife, a husband and a wife, is a picture of Christ and his church. So we have an entire worldly system where people are getting married And their
For the
goal,
wrong reasons.
their goal is not to glorify God in it. Their goal is to live their own life and build their own thing together.
Yeah.
And it allows all of this dysfunction and all of this this unnecessary warfare.
Yeah.
You know, there's some warfare that we're going to go through because the enemy hates our unity and he hates our marriage. He hates what it brings into the earth because it produces family, and God works through family. But people get married and they have no purpose for their marriage. They have no goals other than they just love each other and want to be together, and that's great. But if we don't have actual purpose and we don't see how our gifts go together and how our purposes align together, and how
It becomes very competitive, and it becomes about things that like the foundation of your marriage is what's important.
And I was just going to say, even if it's not competitive, even if they're encouraging each other in things, even if say, you know, it's a marriage where, you know, they really encourage each other in the things that they like and the hobbies they have and the interests they have and the desires of their heart, if it's not centered around God, it's ultimately not going to be fulfilling, because it's only producing fruit that's going to remain in this earth. It's not producing something for eternity. And so if our marriages aren't based on godly principles, and, you know, if I don't look to the Bible and see that I need to love my wife as Christ loves the church, I'm not going to see the fruit in her that I need, that God is trying to pull out, because I'm not doing my job as a husband, right? So if, for instance, if I'm not doing that as a husband, then how is she going to submit to something that is not leading her in a godly manner, right? That naturally pulls that out of her. So this is our message today to you guys. We wanted to share with you guys how to have a fulfilled marriage, how to actually have purpose for your marriage, and we're going to start sharing more. We want to get on here at least once a week. So if you're someone who regularly like watches our videos, just like hold us accountable in the comments section. All right, we're gonna start making more videos. We're honing in on marriage and family because it's so important. It's the passion of our heart. We love marriage. When we talk about it, it just makes me love you more. It makes me excited to share with other people, because we've been through a lot of stuff, and seeing God redeem it is just so powerful, and it's so encouraging. Like, if we can get through the things that we've gotten through, I have hope for everyone. I do.
Yeah.
I do. So any final thoughts?
No.
Okay. Well, we love you guys. Let us know like the types of topics you want to see us discuss, because we'd love to do that too. If you have like any questions or just anything that you want to share on your heart, just put it down in the comments, and we'll see you guys soon then.
Love you.
Love you guys.